Hey mate, I mean, I was using yesterday's link. That was the problem.
That'll do it. Actually, I think we can probably use that same link every day, and it wouldn't matter.
It didn't let me in. It took me to an install page.
No, but what I mean is, if I started it on that link, it would probably be okay.
Oh, maybe, yeah,
Yeah,
maybe.
we
Yeah,
might try it one day.
yeah, yeah.
What's going on
Uh,
anyway, bud? I best have a look at the Forex factory, and
yeah.
I think we know what the flavour of the day is. To be fair,
Yes, we do. Yeah. Oh, that's a shame. I missed my
oh, that's
footsie
not what
trade.
we want to see. That's what we want to see. La 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 la. Footsie trade. You in a trade?
No, I was going to take the footsie, but the Brexit thing kind of put me off. But by the looks of this, I should have got in it.
That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's a pain in the bum sometimes. I
yeah, it
actually
really.
placed a trade too, and I'm in it, and I'm kind of not that happy being in it. I'm right on
Oh,
empty
you,
at the
you
moment.
you wish you weren't, right?
It's not so much. I suppose I wish I weren't, but I mean, I'm not in any trouble, but it's just not doing what it needs to do. It's
Right.
been trying to do it all day. Never mind. All right, Forex Factory. Let's have a look. See, we've got what's an inflation indicator? The US PPI month on month coming out, predicted to be worse than last month. It doesn't change too much, of course, especially reasonably recent times, I suppose. Let's have a look at the graph. Yeah, it doesn't go too far, does it? It's not a massive mover. Certainly, as I say, in the last few years, because wages have gone nowhere, prices have gone nowhere really. Few have gone
Yeah.
up, of course, but yeah, they're predicting we're on the downside, which is interesting because I thought that maybe the US economy was going to probably bring those prices maybe up, maybe not.
Well,
I don't know.
unless the interest rate hikes have kind of managed to uh, calm that a little bit. I mean, PPI is different to the CPI, isn't it? I mean, it's not like
Yeah, it's the
it's not.
price, it's the wholesale price of goods,
Yeah,
not the retail price of goods. So I guess in that
yeah,
regard, yeah, it's hard to say. I'm thinking, I guess I am thinking the other way because, if you think about prices, wholesale prices, you think about the cost of production, and the cost of production hasn't gone down.
no.
And certainly, if you're importing raw materials in the States, the price hasn't gone down. Or has it? I don't know. I don't know where we're up to with all the trade wars and
Yeah, this is the thing, isn't it? There's so
different
many there's so
scenarios.
many aspects at play.
Yeah.
Um, it just makes the whole thing just that more difficult to actually read a lot of the times.
Yes, indeed. But I guess it's not the headline of the day anyway. Although at that time it'll probably be a little bit interesting. We've got of lesser importance the what's it called? Parliament Brexit vote. Well, let's not call it lesser importance, but we don't know when it's going to happen at this point, and we've also
Yeah, I
got
think it's
draft.
7:30.
Oh, you got a time for us? Okay.
Yeah, around 7:30.
PM, of course,
Yes.
because we've just gone through 7:30 a.m. So 12 hours from now, we've got 12 hours to figure it out and get a trade in the market or not. Either way. Then we've got bugger all really until tomorrow. We've got Carney speaking and the CPI figures coming out in the pound. The pound's going to look probably a little bit different.
Um,
Sorry, I'm just answering a question here at the moment.
okay.
Yeah, the pound maybe will look a little bit different by the time we see that figure come out tomorrow. In fact, it probably almost certainly will look a bit different. Were you about to say it won't?
No, I wasn't. I was just because the FTSE 100, the futures are up this morning, and I was just trying to figure out what the story was. This is oh I'll just tell you the headlines actually.
Okay.
UK lawmakers vote today. Yeah, 70 of the part of the government's MPs are voting against her. So the likelihood that that goes through is shrunk. And the lawmakers are talking about Brexit delays. So that suggests kind of Article 50 will be extended. I'm not sure what that means to the pound. I guess we can have a look at that.
And that's the problem. We're not sure what that means.
Yeah, I mean what that looks like it's done for the pound is continued the strength that that had started really towards the end of last week. There was some strength in the pound, and it looks like that's extended again. So her votes so far, I mean, there's nobody that says that her vote is going through, and the market is actually seemingly fairly happy with that, which is intriguing. The FTSE I also find kind of intriguing right now as well. Difficult to know whether Brexit is going to play as big a part in the FTSE as it is to as it would with the pound. Obviously, you know the pound is going to have a greater effect, but the knock-on effect means that the FTSE could be affected. We've just had some confirmation of some tax cuts from China, so that will be positive for the market today. So, you know, we've got our forex factory data points, obviously that we're looking at here, but there are also some other factors that have happened overnight and some announcements, and that it sounds like that tax cut could be the reason that the FTSE has had a little bit of a boost. So we'll have a look at that when we finish going through this stuff. We'll have a look at the FTSE, and we'll have a look at the pound, we'll have a look at the have a look at oil as well and see what's happening there.
Cool. Did you look any more at these numbers and why they didn't make sense compared to what Bloomberg was saying?
No, I didn't, mate. No, it doesn't really make any sense to me. The only thing is that maybe those numbers were right, but Bloomberg had deeper information. So, you know, maybe it was one of those situations that they were kind of both right. But the problem with that is that when you see a green number, you almost take it on face value. But evidently that's you can't really do that.
Certainly not in this case. Well,
No.
so it would appear. Anyway, we'll move on from that. What's Draghi going to say, mate? Who's he talking to? Let's see.
Yeah, have a look.
The annual report for 2017 of the European Central Bank. So he's testifying to Parliament today as to what that was all about. Probably not going to make a whole lot of difference.
No, I mean, there's just been a little headline that ECB are getting tougher on Italy, so I wonder whether that might be a factor.
Yeah, I don't know if he gets to talk about anything else, does he? Maybe he does. Someone will ask him a question anyway, no doubt, and he'll give an opinion on that. And of course, the Parliament Brexit vote. We know all. What are they actually saying here? Is going to be that the result will likely be projected before the official vote count is announced, based on the university report. So not even giving an opinion on that. They're not having to go either.
What about the Brexit vote?
Yeah, what it means.
Well, it's
not
the Brexit
business to do that anyway, I suppose. But
no, I mean it's all about whether they accept Theresa May's deal. That's the thing, and that kind of has obviously connotations that are far-reaching. Because firstly, if they vote it down, it means that that particular vote obviously doesn't that particular agreement doesn't get passed, certainly the first time around, but maybe more significantly, does it put pressure on Theresa May, you know, and her tenureship? So there are a few factors here at play that are.
Yes, and what does that mean to the market, and how's the market going to react to that, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah, which is the tricky thing, isn't it? Because as I say, we are all kind of in of the mind that the Brexit vote will be rejected, and yet the pound has strengthened. So it's kind of go figure on that one, because I would have thought that the uncertainty would have would have put more pressure on the UK. Maybe the uncertainty is a good thing because the market doesn't like the deal anyway. Maybe the market is assuming that means that the chance of no Brexit increases, which is actually what Theresa May has said recently. So there's a there's a few reasons that that we could be seeing that strength in the pound, but I would have thought that the rule of thumb is that confusion, instability, and a lack of direction usually or oftentimes means that we get weakness in the market. So I'm not quite sure how to square that circle.
And that's very much the theme of the whole shebang and shemozzle, as far as I'm concerned. We really don't know what the outcome's going to be. All right, so let me take a look and see what I've done here. What I've done here is trade the Aussie long. Look, this is more a speculator than anything else, to be fair. I don't have a genuine slingshot set up. I tried the 30-minute yesterday, got a TP1, and that was all. Then it retraced and took our trailing stop out. We saw this one this morning as a retest, if you like, of the weekly pivot. Probably looks a little more enticing, if I can say that, on no, it doesn't really. It doesn't. No, the daily chart was probably where I was focused, and that's pretty much what I'm seeing. So break of the weekly pivot. We've already broken the monthly pivot. We've retested the monthly pivot here and gone on with the job. Got above the weekly pivot. We've retested that as well, and I saw that as a potential continuation. And I'm looking for the top of this range. I think I've got my target is actually right there. My TP1 is right there. And as I said, it's not a trade I'm comfortable being in at the moment. And I've got no reason really to say that. But I'm in by the skin of my teeth, and that's probably why I'm uncomfortable. I hate being taken in by a strong bar that doesn't go through my entry very quickly. And that's the case here. So I'm expecting retracement. And maybe a little bit of discomfort. Look, to be fair, I haven't got much on the table here, but a test of daily pivots probably on the cards. I don't know. It's a messy chart, and I'm not that fussed, to be fair, and that's why I say I'm not that keen on being in. The one thing I do like, I suppose, is the lower highs here have been taken out. I was hoping that we'd take it out again. And that still may be the case, and if so, then happy days, the way we'll go. But at this point in time, it's not a great chart, although we are getting higher highs and lows, I suppose. We'll see. What else? Oh, yesterday's trade, that's right. The 30-minute chart, we traded here. What were we trading? A false break, I think. Yep, looks like it. Yeah, we traded here. We traded this bar here. No, we didn't. We traded on the hourly chart. That's right. Sure if that was the trend line ahead of that one. That would have been that one. So we traded this bar here, and we got taken in. Took an age to get TP1, but eventually it came. But that was all it gave. And then by, I think, about a pip, it took our trailing stop. So the trailing stop was just a little bit tight. Yeah, it was 6 pips, our trailing stop, and we got hit by about 1 pip. Otherwise, we would have been still going, and I wouldn't have needed to place that daily trade. But How far up would we be now? Not enough. Target would have been the same as my TP one here. So no real difference, I suppose. We've made a very small amount of money on that first trade. And the second trade, as I said, I'm not that comfortable being in it. Would much rather have got in as a result of a daily pivot retest. We shall see. I'm not that interested in anything else, mate, to be fair. I'm not going to trade anything that's got a euro in it or anything that's got a dollar in it. I actually tossed up whether I'd trade the Aussie dollar or the Aussie yen, and I chose Aussie dollar. Aussie yen's actually going better. I don't know that it would have been through TP1 yet. No, it wouldn't. But it is going a little bit better than Aussie dollar. Also had a look at Aussie Kiwi, but I couldn't make head nor tail of this chart. Very, very difficult to find anything there. I can't even find a proper range. It's just a base that it refuses to go through. Just don't know. I've got no opinion there, to be fair. Also looked at Aussie CAD, couldn't find anything there of interest. And I also looked at dollar yen this morning. And once again, I couldn't find anything there that really interested me. I guess the one thing that looked a little bit interesting was the rejection of the weekly pivot, but hardly instilled any confidence in me. So I just stayed out of that one as well. So really, mate, you got to find something on the footsie.
Well, it's
I'm going home.
Well, do you know what? I have to say that it is there is trades here. There are trades here, I should say. So let me just show you my screen. I think it is this one. Yes. So there are trades here, and it's oops. It's an interesting one because this is really the pattern that in some respects we have been looking for. I'm going to redraw these lines in just to kind of give the listeners some clarity here. But this is the left shoulder, this is the head, and this is the right shoulder, which is currently playing out. Now, the fact that China have come out and given those tax reliefs kind of fills me with a bit more confidence to look for. In fact, this should be drawn from below down here. So let's get rid of that for now. So that is our neckline probably there. So that gives us this our shoulder line here, around there. So that's what we've got. So we've currently we're currently at the shoulder line, which does suggest some downside. Daily pivot may well hold this up, and the reason that I say that is that we've got a lower line here, which I've been waiting to be tested for quite some time, and it is finally now being tested. And the lower line brings us to pretty much on top of the daily pivot, depending on what time it comes down here. But what I would quite like to see, in actual fact, that's a little bit lower. What I'd quite like to see.
I'm seeing your chart. I mean, I'm seeing your chart, but I'm not sure anybody else is.
Oh well, if you are, surely everyone is, aren't they?
I don't know. You're in the big screen in the center of the control panel.
Let me see.
But you're not in the bottom right one, which is the highlighted one.
Okay, let me have a look. So what I need is this and this. Yes, I am being shown right now.
You are?
Yes. My screen is on. Yeah.
I see something different to you, but okay, all good.
Yeah. So so I am looking for this to come down, you know, but the only reason I really want it to come down is so I can look for a long. The difficulty is Brexit, because to be completely honest, if it came down here on a normal environment, I would just take the long, because I think this head and shoulders is going to fail. I think that with the Chinese tax cuts, there's probably just enough to keep the FTSE trying to make these highs. Now, I'm not saying that we're going into an uptrend by any stretch. The upper line is defined by this, which has been held up. We know that's been held up. So a target here would be there. Now we are looking for a left shoulder, head, and right shoulder. And really, my absolute favorite area for that would be this monthly pivot. So if we could come down just a little bit more, then the monthly pivot will provide me a decent area to get in on the wider looking pattern. I wouldn't anticipate the right shoulder to come quite as low as this left shoulder because of the monthly pivot. The issue now is the trend line. So there's a few places that we could look for the long. There's along the trend line just below the daily pivot. There is the monthly pivot, which makes it below the trend line, or there's all the way at this point here, which is where the pretty much where the previous weekly pivot was. So there's a few spots that I'd quite like to look for the long, but I'm not really that keen on stacking into this one because the downtrend is still in existence. And as I say, we've got this Brexit issue happening. So I think it could be a difficult day in some respects, and not in this way that I think when a trend happens, it will go. I think it's going to be a difficult day in actually trying to get the price that I want, or the price which looks like the right price plus being an attractive setup. So there are some challenges today. I am, as I say, I have a long bias. I think the Chinese news will probably trump anything else for the day until we get to the end of the day, and then maybe Brexit will come into play towards tomorrow. So I don't really mind putting Brexit still on a back burner, and maybe try and effectively do some intraday trading until tomorrow. And with a mind that if I can get in on a long and it goes enough that either taking profit and moving stops to break even, or just moving stops to break even and hoping there's not a huge gap against me would not be a bad play. And the reason I don't mind it so much is that everybody does know the vote. There's going to be no shock here. So for the market to react violently would be a little bit more surprising to my mind, but obviously it could happen. So
yeah, I'm going to say just on that point,
yeah,
we said the same thing. When was the last time? Just before Christmas, wasn't it? When she was under fire, and she actually got through that one. So if the unlikely would occur, what do you think will happen?
Oh, she gets the vote through.
Mm.
Oh God, yeah, that's a really good question. Well,
we don't know what's going to happen if it doesn't. Well, we've got an idea, but we're not sure, and that's in fact, the most likely outcome. So what on earth do we do? I mean, we don't do anything until it happens, but what is the market going to do? One would speculate.
yeah, which I think is. Oh, hold on a minute. Why have you got the screen back? I think that is quite a key question because the way that the way that looks on the chart is that the vote not going through strengthens the pound, and potentially, if the FTSE can hold up, it could strengthen the FTSE. So, or not have too much of an impact. So, certainly the charts right now are saying no vote, strong pound. So, if the vote goes through, that would suggest weak pound from this point.
Well, logically, yes, but whether
Yeah, but it's very
know.
difficult, isn't it? I mean, that's a very, very difficult thing to now have to second guess.
Well, the point is we don't have to second guess it. We have to wait until it happens, I suppose.
Yeah,
We're not
yeah,
going to lead into this, unless you've got absolute firm opinion and can back it up with something, and you've got a good entry point and a great stop loss point, and you've got a whole big set of kahunas there. I think you need all of those things going for you if you're going to trade into this announcement.
yeah. I agree. Do you know, mate? I think if you come down to that, if you go to the Google, because it is flipping between the two screens here. If you go down to Google, the bottom right hand corner and select my screen, you effectively give me, because you've got control, I think, today. So you give me the screen.
Bottom
There you go.
right
You've done that.
corner.
Bottom right. Sorry. Yes. Just click on me.
You don't exist.
Do I not?
No.
You haven't got two little screens there?
Yeah.
Oh, you and me or not?
Yeah, but as soon as I click on it, it goes to me.
Huh. That's strange.
If I click on, okay, that appears to be me, and that appears to be you.
It's me. Yeah, that's it. That's frozen up there now. That seems better. I don't know what's happened there. Oh no, no. Every time you talk, it goes back to you again. I'm
Yeah,
not sure why that's
weird,
doing
isn't
that.
it? I don't understand
Okay.
that.
Well, in that case, I will just have a final word on oil. Let's have a quick look at oil.
I was about to point you in that direction.
Great. Okay. So that's the FTSE. So the FTSE, we're looking for longs, but we got to be kind of careful. Certainly the head and shoulders pattern on the hourly here does suggest some downside, but to my mind, I don't think we're going to break through. As I say, I think that Chinese the Chinese factor could help the FTSE out here. So I'd like to see this come down, and we've had some pretty decent movement in the Nikkei as well overnight as well. So the FTSE could take a lead from that, but we've got to be careful because of Brexit. So let's have a look at oil now.
Don't you look forward to the
WTI.
day when we don't have to say that?
Well, with Brexit,
we don't have to educate.
yeah,
We've got to be careful.
yeah. I mean, this is the thing. Is you know, I quite like the volatility that that Brexit's provided for the FTSE, but by the same token, I kind of prefer the volatility to be caused by something else, so we can not have to worry about this particular market in that way. That is a factor for me. Okay, so market has opened up, and we are starting to see a little bit of buying coming with the FTSE. Now this is WTI. So WTI, I think again looks actually pretty good for some. It's quite, in some respects, it's got a similar looking chart to the FTSE, in as much as we got a left.
Speaking of inverted head and shoulders, as we were.
Yeah, it's really clear, isn't it? That's a really clear left shoulder, really clear head, and it's just a case of creating this right shoulder and where that right shoulder might stop, and it looks like it may have found a base already, you know, in the first instance. So there's a lower high here on the 4-hour, so that would suggest maybe a little bit of downside. There's this trend line along here as well, which is again quite similar to the FTSE. Looks like we're a little way off from that as well, so that may be dragged down a little bit further. The issue again is going to be a kind of pivot issue, where these pivots are potentially going to hold things up. We see the daily and the weekly stacked on top of each other right here, so it's going to struggle to get through that point. The question really for all this is that when I look at this, you know, I see the same with the FTSE. You could take a little intraday trade, and the intraday trade might be first couple of hours of the day, and it might start to push forward. But I think the longer term view on this is for maybe just a little bit more of a dip, or a little bit more weakness, or a little bit more choppiness, because of the, you know, where that left shoulder was. That left shoulder was taking a lot longer than this right shoulder has to carve out. So I think some volatility here is probably, you know, a little bit more likely. And I, as I say, I feel pretty similar as I do with this one as I do to the FTSE 100. I think the FTSE is the same, where we could see, you know, attempts to push to the upside today, and some intraday trading today, just off the back of that Chinese data. But it might not be the time to get in long. There might be a better time to get in. So if the market goes long, then I'm probably going to have to sit on my hands. You know, if it starts to come short again, then I can start to look at it. But if it goes long, I'm probably going to have to sit on my hands, because I'm not going to get the price that I need. But it would certainly get boosted if oil also was to go long. So an oil price action which starts to move to the upside, and maybe some other factors with a FTSE, maybe a decent looking heat map, then I don't see why intraday longs wouldn't be on. But that wouldn't be my particular. I wouldn't have a great appetite for that, even though that's what I would suspect would happen. And oil, it looks a bit frozen right now, doesn't it? But it looks like it at this point.
Going on there, that's for sure.
No, it's pretty flat as it goes on a 5-minute chart. Well, it's attempting to make some sort of hold here on the 5-minute chart. Just as as I say, we've got the same thing going on here with the FTSE. When I show you the FTSE again, the FTSE has, or is attempting to make a little fist for some upside here on the shorter term time frames. Oh, I can't always grab this. Which is this? There we go. There you go with the FTSE. Oh, hold on. I'm looking at one of the wrong screens here. There we go.
It's like my chooks are having a fight. I'll just have to have a look at that.
Oh yeah, you go ahead, mate. There we go. Yeah, see that's what we got with the hourly. Probably is a better chart to look at. So it looks a bit scruffy. I think we need some clarity, and I think I'd like to wait for the low end of this range here, and then look for the long. So I think we sit and wait, mate. I don't think we can do too much. I suspect there's probably not too much for you to do either, but I think we have to just have to sit on our hands for a little while until, as I say, that there is just a little bit more clarity. And it might be that we're waiting right until tomorrow, which is a sad factor of this.
Look, I think we always knew this. When even last week we had a fair idea that we were going to be in a holding pattern until this announcement of the vote was known. Pardon me. And I think even after the vote is known, there will still be, certainly in my mind, uncertainty as to what happens, because, as you said before, what happens to Theresa May when she gets refused again, or if she gets refused again, and if she doesn't, what happens? What does the market do? And there's sure to be a vote of no confidence go in again, and we're seeing it all over again. And do we actually go back to before Christmas and look at the market and say, well, what happened when this happened last time? Does it happen again? Maybe that's the way to do it. I don't know. But gee, I wish it was over, because it is stifling me. I'm not trading. If I'm trading at all, I'm only trading the Aussie pairs today, and I am not that keen. As I said before, I'm leaving the euro alone, leaving the pound alone, and they're the go-tos for me. So it's bloody annoying, to be fair.
Yeah. There's interestingly as well. I mean, the move in that we saw last year in some of the markets, and particularly the FTSE, also has to become a factor, because we were talking about it a couple of years ago, sort of saying how the pound was really, it was the sick kid last year, and in 2016, the back end of 2016. And they do tend to move in these odd cycles, So would the pound again have a really difficult year? And my suspicion is, maybe after we get through March, depending on what's to happen there, then we actually do see some pound strength, because the pound is incredibly cheap. Comparatively speaking, and it's the same with the FTSE. The FTSE has been pretty well beaten up. This is right from August, and just coming right back, and on a monthly chart, the FTSE is hitting this primary trend line. It hasn't quite got there yet, and maybe we do need to see that one last kind of move to the downside. But it does start to look relatively inexpensive, from what we had, well, only a few months before. And right the way through 2016, it's looking relatively inexpensive. I think the fact that it's under this line probably does mean that we should be looking for the shorts. Ultimately, we should still be looking for the shorts in the market ultimately. But somewhere in this block here, I think there's probably going to be some buying, because stocks do tend to go up more than they go down, and over a course of a 10-year period, looking at 2009, this is where we are. So if we were thinking about the next 10-year period, the chances are we're going to be somewhere up here, or even maybe even further up. So given that, if people are sort of allocating for the next 10 years to look for moves, I don't think they're going to really care about little moves, further small moves to the downside, because the assumption would be that we're probably going to cross through this point, at some point in the next 3 years, and then we're going to be somewhere up here in the next 10. So, when you think about it that way, it does actually make the market look, as I say, relatively cheap, or not to say it wouldn't get cheaper, but relatively speaking, we're probably not in a bad spot for people to start looking for a bit of upside and just a bit of cheer that could actually promote that.
You're a glass half full guy, aren't you? There'll be other parts of the world going, oh, we're due for a crash, we're due for a big correction, and I don't think we're going to see daylight for quite some time. We've been hearing that for, I don't know, the last 5 years, maybe even.
Yeah.
Yet it continues to do the same, and it's always continued to do the same. It's always gone higher. There's no question about that. But we do need, I think, to have a little bit of a correction. I'm on their side, to be fair. I think when I say a little bit, I think there's probably a little bit more downside to be, and I don't know when, and that's the whole thing. It's impossible to say.
Yeah.
And well, it won't be a technical thing. It will be. Well, I don't think it'll be a technical thing. It will more likely be a fundamental tipping point that just says, righto, here's the day, and we're going to correct the market as of from here. It's going to correct.
Yeah. And do you know what? I would subscribe to that too, because if a market runs in business cycles, we know that this particular cycle, bullish move in the global markets, has been fairly unprecedented and longer than many others in history. So we are due a correction, a recession, whichever. And then when you add in the Trump factor, who seems to be almost igniting that, then it would suggest that there is some further downside, and it could be much more significant as well. But I guess my point is that people that did sort of like get in at this point probably wouldn't mind that too much, because if we think about the last recession, I don't have the last recession on here, interestingly, but the last recession saw us to this low down here. It didn't take too long to get down to this point down here. So yeah, and I think it was around about the 6,000-ish. I think this was the area that it wasn't quite able to get through for quite some time, but eventually it did get back up there. It it only took 5 years to get back up to that point from the low point of the recession. So if people are sort of thinking about this, if you get that recession, they probably will be thinking, okay, another 5 years and we'll be back up to that point, and then in another 5 years after that, we'll be beyond. So so I could see people starting to kind of think, let's get in here. But I hear you, and I think it's a dangerous area to really sort of look for the longs because of where we are. I think if we weren't in so deep within the cycle, then this would be a decent kind of buying the dip scenario.
Yeah, sure.
And it probably would convince people that there could be one more high. But there is some worry out there. There's no doubt about that. And I guess that worry will be will still be there until we get maybe the recession actually take place. I suppose until that happens, we're in that point where with today's information, without that recession, this doesn't look like a bad buying opportunity. For some people, as long as they've got the time and space to let this run, let it go for a little while.
And that's all you can do. I mean, you can't judge the market on something that you think may happen at some time.
Yeah,
you've got to have a bit more than that. And I'm not advocating for 1 second that everybody shorts everything. It's just crazy. It's nonsense.
Yeah.
it will come when it comes, and if it comes, and there's nothing you can do about that. I don't believe, because as I say, it won't happen technically. You'll just go bang, and you've got to trade and as though it's tomorrow and tomorrow, not today. You have to trade what you're
Yeah.
seeing,
Yeah.
and unfortunately today, I'm not seeing anything too much. I've got to say. You
No,
want
I'm
to have
not,
a look
mate. But
at the couple of currency
go on.
pairs I want to have a look at?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's have a look around the grounds a little bit.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of round the grounds to be had. I'm really speculating on the Aussie at the moment. It's not a technical trade that I'm entirely comfortable with. It's the daily chart, and I just traded a little bump. Really, it's a hit a resistance level, come off the resistance level, and if we go back there, we've got a good chance of cracking through it, especially off a support level, and that's what I was looking for. So we're still at entry. We're not doing anything. We haven't tried to go through that high. That's where my first take profit is, of course. If we come off here, yeah, don't know. Daily pivot's in the way, so I guess we've got that going for us. I'd like to see, in fact, I would have liked to have seen earlier in the day a pull back to this area and then go, but that hasn't happened. We've got a few things going for us, but there's not a whole lot here that's happening that's enticing me to load up on this, and that's for sure. I'm only trading it very, very weak, as I said before. Yesterday's 30-minute, we only got a TP1 out of, so I'm probably just having another crack to see if we can take on these highs, or not necessarily even the highs. The yellow line there would be my absolute get out point if we were fortunate enough to get through there. But I like this this crazy bar from last week. I like the big bull bar that followed it. I like the fact that we got through the monthly pivot and retested it. I like the fact that we've got through the weekly pivot and retested it. So there is reason to believe this could go, but it's not super strong, that's for sure. As I said, I tossed up whether I would trade that or Aussie yen today. Aussie yen appears to be going a little bit better than Aussie US dollar. There's not yet a TP1. That would have been around about this level. Maybe I should have halved the trade. That would have been TP1 about there, so we're still about 30 odd pips away from that. Again, not super confident, but if there's a direction I wanted to take, it was long. So a little speculator again. Maybe I should have split the risk and put half on this and half on the US dollar as well, but didn't. So we'll see exactly how that one pans out. Aussie Kiwi, I had absolutely no idea about this one, as I said before. This is hanging on to the top of this trend line here, and that kind of gave me an indication that there may be a long on offer, but I couldn't really find anything here that was compelling, and trading straight into the weekly pivot wasn't a great idea either. So I thought, no, we'll just let this one go and see what happens. If we get something that indicates to me that it is a higher low, then maybe off the monthly pivot there, maybe is a little false break. I don't know, of something that's not yet evident. Maybe on a 30-minute chart, maybe on a 4-hour chart. I don't know. But looking at those two charts at the moment, all I can see is a bloody big mess. And I guess I could put a trend line in here. That might have been interesting had I been looking at that, but it's not compelling. Nothing's compelling, and that's why I'm pretty much in a bog today. I just don't know what to do in terms of looking for entries because they're just not evident. Maybe there's something here later on. No, that one's gone. I'll have to use that one. That looks a bit better. So I might have something to interact off here. I've got a confluence area. I've got the pivots very close together. Let's see how that one pans out. Later in the day, we'll have a look at Aussie CAD. And really, the rest of euros and pound crosses that I look at, look, just for the sake of looking, let's take a look at the euro.
I was just listening to Keir Starmer, the the Labour shadow Brexit secretary, about the vote today, and the Labour the Labour position, and it just if she loses today's vote, it does start to look a lot softer. Brexit starts to look a lot softer because, you know, he says that there's three options. He says that there's the Prime Minister ploughs on with her deal and tries to get it through, which is unlikely to happen. And if she's to do that, then MPs will probably start to round on her. He said that there's a general election should be called, which, well, I mean, the Tories aren't going to be too keen on that, so that may be a difficult one to get through. He said that there could be cross-party discussions, which would then mean that we could get some agreement in Parliament about what the deal should be, or there's that people's vote. Which Labour would back if they can't get any of the two previous options. So it's looking soft. You know, the only time, you know, even if even if Theresa May goes and says, right, I am not going to renege on this, her Brexit deal is actually pretty soft anyway. You know, it's not a hard Brexit. So the only hard Brexit that could now be on the horizon would be a no deal, and the only way that no deal looks like it could happen is if the EU really do dig their heels in and say we are simply not negotiating any further with the UK, which could happen, but I think that would be incredibly damaging.
Yeah,
you know,
they're
for
not
them.
really likely to do that, are they? Really? I mean,
No, I mean they've been
angst between them. Surely not.
No, do you know? I think the EU have played a bit of a blinder, but I think that the reason that it's actually looked a lot better on their side is because of how poorly the UK government has played it. So it's one of those that when you look at two teams and at the end of the game you say, was it that this team made the other team look poor, or was it that the other team, you know, allowed the other team to look great? And I think it's a bit of both. It's one of those. There's a bit of both that the EU have looked really like professional negotiators because they've been 27 that have been married on their opinion and quite happy to kind of agree on whatever it was that their position was and move forward. And the UK have been completely broken on the way that their negotiating position would be. So I think the UK has managed to let the EU look a lot better, probably than is the truth.
Yeah.
But I think with some cross-party agreement in this country, we might start to see maybe some cracks happen in the EU after, you know, if we have a position that we can say this is what we are all behind, or the majority of people are behind, then I think we might start to see the EU just give way on a few bits and pieces. The biggest problem with the vote today is the backstop. That's the thing that people do not want, and the backstop effectively keeps us in the customs union. And the backstop is to do with Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland because they don't want border checks. So how do you leave a bloc without having a border on a physical landmass? And that is the issue that the UK has faced right the way through this. It's nothing else but Little Ireland that's really caused the major headache for us leaving the European Union. And actually, interestingly, Ireland has become the biggest cog in this wheel turning, and yet during the referendum, it was never or very, very seldom mentioned as either an issue or a pawn in this whole game. So, you know, I find that quite fascinating that the Leavers didn't really touch on Ireland. You know, that their whole thing was we are going to make trade deals with around the world. The EU will want to trade with us, so doing a deal with them will become very, very easy. Canada have just done a deal. It won't take us very long to get this deal done. They didn't mention Ireland. You know, their whole rhetoric was to do with trade and how much better it would be having our own sovereignty. And very few of the Remainers mentioned it as well. And I guess the ones that did mention it probably recognised that it wasn't a very sexy thing to talk about that would actually convince people to remain within the EU. So they didn't really press on it very much. But actually, it is the issue of the day. And the reason that it's also become quite significant is because the way that the government is currently propped up is with the DUP, which is the Democratic Union Party in Northern Ireland. So they are one small party that can pretty much bring the government down. You know, if they're not backing them anymore, the government no longer has the majority, and that's really what's going on. We've got this hung parliament, you know, so the Conservatives don't have the majority that they need to get things through, and it's the DUP and the decision by Theresa May to bring the DUP into Parliament to try to so she could actually control, you know, to become PM, and the Conservatives would be able to control the country, has actually ended up probably coming around and biting them on the backside. So, you know, but when you kind of look back in history, I think the DUP might actually be one party that's mentioned as an error of judgment on the government side.
There's a bit of that going on. In particular, if you look at, well, you don't have to look too far, do you? Look at the US at the moment. Same thing. You know, it's a lame government. There's no clear decisions can be made without a big fight. Look at the wall, for instance, and that appears to be off the table. You've got Australia in exactly the same predicament. We just keep throwing out prime ministers because of it.
Yeah.
Nobody can decide on anything because, you know, party A says, okay, this is the policy, and party B says, no, it's not, you idiots.
Yeah.
We're not going to vote for that. And I don't know if this is causing angst. Of course it's causing angst amongst the voters, and they're sick of it and tired of bickering and political stances. You know, every day on the news, you know, you get sound bites from the leader of X party, no matter where it is in the world. They're not talking about policy. They're talking about the other side and what the other side should have done or didn't do or won't do. You know, it's just a world that is in political mess, and thank God the focus is on the UK at the moment. Otherwise, Australia would be Australia still is the laughing stock of the world because of the amount of prime ministers. They just line them up and knock them over. It's like bottles on a wall. But politically, we're in a bit of a mess around the world. Yeah,
I think we are, mate. And you know, just bringing into the picture as well, Europe. It doesn't seem that Draghi is probably going to end his tenure with his desire to raise interest rates, which actually, you know, trading things against the euro right now is a little bit tricky, isn't it? Because the German economy is quite sensitive to the Chinese economy, and with the Chinese economy slowing much more significantly than people thought it would. They knew it would slow, but it slowed much more significantly than people thought it would. And then Trump whacking those tariffs on to really accentuate the problem. The German numbers haven't been up to scratch. Draghi is unable to raise interest rates unless he gets numbers that are up to scratch. So when we bring that into play as well, we really are looking for some softening, you know, in markets worldwide. You know, never mind just talking about the FTSE, and never mind just talking about the pound because of Brexit, or the euro because of Brexit. There are other factors that are at play. You know, there are these factors that come into the headlights when you consider the rest of the world's picture to do with the Chinese economy, which really has had this knock-on effect. Whereas before, it was always said that the US sneezes and the rest of the world gets a cold. Maybe we're starting to see that shift a little. You know, maybe we're starting to see the Chinese economy sneeze and the rest of the world get a cold, and we need to watch those Chinese numbers very, very closely to get a really good read on the direction that we want to go and be looking at longer term. And as I say, I would suggest that any upside which comes into play with some of these global markets will probably end up being a sell the rip kind of opportunity, rather than us being in that buy the dip. I mean, as I say, it's not a bad area to go long, because I still think, if you're looking at a longer term investment. But I think for traders, us traders still need to be looking down the barrel of the data, and the data just does not suggest that we get European economic growth. It doesn't suggest that at this stage we're going to get that Chinese economic growth. And when you factor those two things in, particularly Germany, and we're not just talking about the other problems in Europe, i.e. Italy and Greece. We're talking about the big gun right now, and we're talking about the fact that Merkel's power is starting to wane as well. It doesn't really kind of fill us with too much confidence that that going long in some of this environment is the right thing to do. So I think Draghi's speech later on might be quite interesting, and we might actually see some further downside in the euro.
Just having a look at the Aussie at the moment. Actually, let's go to the euro before that. If there was no Brexit today, I would be trading this short now underneath this bar here.
Yeah.
Because this is a classic false break for me. It's not perfect in its
setup.
Yeah. But it's there. We've had a breakout. We've come back inside, and we've retested that trend line as well at the weekly pivot. So that would be a place I would like to enter, is right there. But as I said, not trading it today. Going back to the Aussie, I'm not liking the look of this bar here.
Just a quick question, mate, on that. Yeah. On that. So would you see that as stop hunting?
This here?
Yeah, that breakout. Yeah.
Not necessarily. I don't think there was a move significant enough for that to happen. I think this is just an attempt for the market to preempt, maybe having a look for buyers. Are there buyers at this level, above this level, maybe
right.
above 115? Right. And I think the answer is probably no. I don't know that it's a stop hunt.
Okay.
I'd probably look at the Aussie and say there may be.
See if you can take the screen again, mate. We seem to be frozen on mine.
Okay.
Click on you.
Is that better?
Yes. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Back to the euro. Let me have a look at that in a bigger context. No, I don't think so, mate. If it were here, I'd probably say yes. It's just an attempt to break out of the range, I think. And I don't see anything more than that. And now, I think probably the market's saying, well, hang on a minute, we've got a Brexit vote coming up, and the likely outcome here is that the euro will weaken. Whether that's right or wrong, is another story. I don't see too many people being long here. I don't see that at the moment. That said, from a daily point of view on the daily chart, I've been looking to get long, and now that we're near Brexit vote, I'm not. But from this point here, I was looking for these higher lows and trying to get to the top of this range, number one. I think I managed to do that a couple of times, once here and once here. So it hasn't been that bad, but it's been difficult since, trying to get back into this. I haven't found a way in. I think on balance, as I said, if it wasn't Brexit today, I would definitely be looking to trade that bar and looking to trade it short. I'm looking forward to the market telling me what it wants to do after Brexit, or after the Brexit vote, rather. And then we can probably get a little more clarity about where we're going to be. But at this point in time, and really, if I look from a bigger picture point of view, we're kind of dead set in the no man's land zone, if you like. If I look at this bigger range, we're neither headed to the top nor are we to the bottom at this point. I think that will change, maybe after tomorrow. And the interesting part, again, for me, is going to be, I don't think we're going to get a clean breakaway here, because, okay, we've probably got the price vote priced into the market already. We're expecting no. If we get no, it's what happens next. Where do we go from here, and how the market reacts to that is going to be the follow-on effect. So yes, we'll probably get a little bit of downside. I shouldn't preempt that because I'm not sure. If we do get the no, we may get a little bit of downside, but I don't know that we can't go long here, dependent on how the Parliament deals with what happens next, I suppose. And this is the great uncertainty of it all. How you preempt that, or even factor it in, is a very, very difficult prospect.
Yeah, I agree, mate. Well, should we put anything out to the guys, because they might be looking at other trades and other currencies. I don't see any
I'd love someone to
question.
give me an idea. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I'm very, very, very skinny on ideas, I've got to say, at the moment.
Yeah, the FTSE again. You can see. I can't see my chart yet, but let me show you this chart again. The FTSE is pushing to the downside again. It attempted to get back up above that weekly pivot, but has failed. So we are now looking for this daily pivot to potentially hold up, and maybe looking for this lower trend line to be tested. And it's problematic, because I would the times that I would take along on this is if data has just been released, some like CPI or something. CPI has been released and it's forced the market down. Because CPI is one of those things that does tend to cause some bluster. It doesn't oftentimes change a trend per se. So if it was CPI alone, if this had come down here, or one of those, if it's come down here, I'd be looking for buying opportunities right now. But I do have a bit of an issue just with the fact that we've got this vote, and we've got all this potential negativity out there as well, and I don't really feel that comfortable going long. I don't mind the long, I think long is my stance here, but I don't see enough to suggest that that this would be a particularly safe trade. I see a market that is in potential flux, and indicators are actually a bit confused. If there was a really strong indication that we were going long here, then it would be fine. Going short wouldn't be an issue if we were under this trend line. And that's the other issue. So we do have this potential for a head and shoulders pattern. We do have the weakness in the overall market. The Chinese coming out and saying that there will be some more tax cuts kind of helps the market out a little bit. So that doesn't really kind of show any agreement with the fundamentals of the day and the charts. We're kind of trapped between two pivots. It just looks pretty ugly, doesn't it? It just doesn't look like a nice clean time to trade. So we are both, I think, looking for some inspiration. So if anybody's got anything that they would like us to look at, then please post it in. The thing with it as well is that even if you guys have got an opinion, what are your thoughts on this? We're all here as professional traders, even if you don't see it as your primary income. This is what we're in the game to do. So it's important to kind of have a loose opinion on this, even if it's just technical. It doesn't have to be fundamental. But what are your technical thoughts on this? Even if you're not trading the FTSE or the euro, are there any other things that you're looking at and thinking, I'd like to stay away from this? Because the Aussie is a really good example. You've touched on the Aussie, and the Aussie is another one that is getting drawn in to some fundamental aspect here because of what's going on in China. And I'm surprised actually that did you take a long on the Aussie?
Yes, mate. Yep.
Yeah, I'm surprised that the Aussie hasn't really started to boost up. It actually looks okay, doesn't it?
As I said, I'm not fussed on the chart. The chart's just not giving me anything clean.
Yeah.
It's very messy. Although that said, we are cycling. If you look at the last day or so, we are going higher highs, higher lows. So there is a bit of a cycle going on there. I don't know. I just have got this niggle in the back of my mind that nothing's going to be terribly clear today.
Yeah, I think you're right, mate. I think you're right, Mr.
Nobody's coming forward and saying, "Hey, look, we really should be trading the Mexican peso," or nobody's saying that Singapore dollar's strong against whatever it's strong against. If it's strong, I don't know. I don't trade it, but nobody's got too many ideas either. So, and that doesn't surprise me. I think it's a great day to learn, and I think that's why I'll be kind of fixated to the charts. Not just now, I don't think, but I'd like to see, what have we got, about 11 hours to go, 11 and a half hours to go, or something like that, before the vote. It'll be interesting to see what happens as we go through the day, whether there will be speculation in the market, whether it's just going to go flatline until then. All of those things will be interesting. But really, in terms of trading, I don't see anything that's terribly clear right now for me.
Yeah, completely agree. Heat map is on the FTSE 100 is slightly bullish. 60% of stocks are in positive territory again, so not a good idea really to look for the shorts. So far, and also looking at the price action of the first 40 minutes, which you can see better on a 5-minute chart probably. It's up. So this is where we opened up. So we're pretty flat from the open. We've gone up. We've pumped down. We're probably going to just attempt to kind of get back to that weekly pivot again. As I said before, there's probably some intraday trades that are happening here, but not in a decent place. We haven't touched that daily pivot. We haven't touched this lower trend line. So given those factors, it just looks like we are trading in in a very tight range on very, very small time frames right now, and just doesn't look like there's probably that much volume out there. It's difficult to see that, but it doesn't look like there's that much volume out there either. Whoops.
Well, I wonder who is trading today. I mean, what are your thoughts? What are the London institutional traders doing when they turn up for work today? Are they going?
That's a really good question. That's a really good question. Yeah.
What do we do now? We've got our positions. Do we just wait for this announcement, or what do we do?
Yeah, well, let's have a look at the pound again. And I'm going to compare it to the euro, because I think this is a much better barometer for how the negotiations are going, purely because these are the two players in the room. And against the euro, if I can grab, I don't know why, but my mouse doesn't always work. Either I need a new one, or there's a glitch. There we go. Yeah, so this is what's going on with the euro today, pound euro, and again, fairly flat, but this has been the run, into that vote. There's not really been too much significance otherwise.
That's a clear indication as to what the market thinks about the vote.
Yes, and when we look at the pound against the euro on longer term time frames, this is back in 2018. Let me just bring in 2016. This is really the run, you know. This is from when the vote, just before the vote happened, and then into the vote, and then the euro really did start to fly. So when we kind of look at this, it does suggest that the pound is probably again a kind of cheap against the euro. And if you're going to take a position up here, and looking at the March 29th aspect of where to trade, wouldn't you want to kind of be, you know, if you're looking again, you're looking for a kind of a 10-year strategy, wouldn't you probably much more likely to be on the shorter side of the euro and the longer side of the pound, because this does look like it's you know, like the euro is expensive against the pound, and the likelihood is that we do at least come back down to this area again, before we start to see the euro potentially strengthen again. So, you know, to my mind, I do think that we are probably seeing maybe some positions which would speculate on a decent deal in the end for the pound, not being too concerned if it starts to pop forward, because ultimately things will settle down over the next 10 years, and we could see ourselves back down to this point, or maybe even back down here again, you know, given the potential problems with the European institutes and the European countries, and the lack of rhetoric about interest rate rises. You know, that at least the UK has started that interest rate rise journey, and if they get a decent Brexit deal, then that starts to increase the probability of further interest rate rises as well. Whereas I don't see the same thing coming through with Europe. So, you know, I don't know whether today would be a day that they really want to get involved in it, but if, you know, and looking at the charts, it doesn't look so far that they are really that keen on getting involved in it. In actual fact, on a shorter term time frame, this looks like we do actually have a little break to the upside potentially happening here as we get through this area here. So there was a little break to the upside from this point, but let's look at this and see where this could get to. Maybe to this point, and then we start to see the sellers come in. So looks like we could be a little bit. The level at the top there is spot 89.45. Maybe a 40 pip run to the upside. You know, if you're going to enter it, then you'd probably want your stops at the low. I don't know what is going on with this mouse.
What chart's that you're looking at?
This is the euro pound.
No, sorry,
on the hourly.
Hourly, right? Okay.
Yeah, euro pound on the hourly. I don't know where the pivots are. We'll bring that in.
Yeah, I'm liking a look at that that monthly chart. That looks super. Actually, big double top, big bearish engulfing bar.
Yeah.
The only problem I've got with it is we've already got two lower highs, or two equal highs that are lower. That throws a little bit of confusion. Maybe we need to come higher and match the high of or the open of that engulfing bar.
Yeah, I mean, would you?
92, maybe.
Let me see what you've got
at some stage.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, because it's a monthly chart. Would you look at that and try and play it on a longer term time frame?
Definitely, no problem at all. But I think I'd like to see 92.
So, given that, let's have a look at that here then. So, if we had this going on with a monthly, then what I would do is come down a couple of time frames. So, you know, now to the daily. I'd like to see this monthly bar look like this, or something kind of bearish maybe before we got in. But then when you look at the dailies have already broken down. You know, whether it holds down here is another question, but it's already broken down. That the level here is at 89.51 ish. That's where the market refused before, and it looks like those dailies are broken down. So
that's what I was saying before when I said those two equal highs. That's probably the point you needed to get in.
Yeah.
In fact, any one of those on the monthly chart, any one of the three reversal bars, the three high test bars, would have been a good trade. I would have thought.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And it's one of those ones that if you've got the appetite for for pure direction, then I would suggest maybe even speculating on an order around about the 89.51 area around here, and looking to see whether if the price comes back up there that you just triggered in, and just leaving it alone. You would need kind of a decent size account for that, but to trade that in that particular area and then see if there's any money to be made on trading that, I think would be at this point a fairly decent strategy. I'd want to see also what the 4 hour looks like, because that would probably be the trigger chart.
I think we're probably likely to see a little bit more toing and froing before the big move. That's why I'm saying maybe 90. I'd like to see 92 and 92 rejected, maybe.
Yeah, do you know the other thing about this as well is that these pivots are up here, aren't they? We do have these two pivots here. The daily pivots at this point, but we got the monthly and the weekly pivot at that point too. So that starts at like a pretty good level as well for some significant rejection. And there's no doubt that this one could fly up there and refuse it in one period. Whether that's an hourly period or even a 15-minute period, it could easily happen with high volatility as we approach that 7 o'clock. So putting some orders in here, I don't think would be too bad an option. I think you'd want to know that at this point here, you could afford for the market to come against you. Now, I wouldn't put stops there personally. I would just want to know that if it came to that point, that I could afford it. That my account could take it, whether that's at 1% or less. I'd want to make sure that I could afford a 140 pip run. Because then if it did get up to that point, I think the strategy would be see if it held it. Make sure you got time to see if that holds it, and if it was to hold that area, then you'd want to put the hedge on, and just maybe hedge up to that next point, and then maybe maybe take the profit on the hedge, and then see if it does start to come down. But that would be, I think that would be a pretty good play for me. Try and get in here. What's that, buddy?
I said, there you go. You do have something to do today.
Well, possibly, yeah, possibly. It's a little ways off, but the volatility is probably only likely to pick up towards 7 o'clock, which is what we're looking at, 10 hours away. So I've got 10 hours to wait on this, but it would be of interest. I have to say, it would be of interest if price was up at this point in the next 10 hours. Then I would be interested in trying to take a short there.
Okay. We might discuss that in the evening show, which is only about 39 minutes away from now.
Yeah.
Have a further look at it.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think we should do that. I don't think there's anything else that we can really discuss.
Oh, look, nothing with any, great certainty or even preferentially. I don't have anything. Look, there is one thing. Okay, I'll show you one thing. If you're not trading the Aussie long at the moment, then there is a potential entry here in 8 minutes and 6 seconds.
Just see if you can grab the screen again, mate.
I thought I'd done that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we good?
Yeah, good.
Okay, now, again, this is a little bit on the danger side because we'll be trading straight into these highs here. And it's a breakout. It's a breakout trade that I'm talking about. So it's dangerous. There's no two ways about that. So for that reason, you'd have to reduce your risk if you're going to get interested in it. But there is an entry above this candle here, in my humble opinion. And that would be at around about the 105.56 level, and I'd put my stop underneath that. In fact, I'd put my stop underneath there, probably at 105.45. So it's only about 11, 12 pips of risk. And there's an obvious target. Well, there's two obvious targets. One's there and one's there. So it's better than 1-to-1. And if you think that's a possibility, then that would be the only thing I'm interested in at the moment. The reason I'm interested in it is this trend line. And I mentioned it before. We've been unable to close below that trend line since we hit it, or since we broke it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days ago. That's interesting. Now we've come back to, what is that line that goes through there? That line there, which is a weekly chart. Let me go back and have a look at that. So we've had a false break, potential false break of this trend line. We've come back above it. This bar's rejected it. Normally I'd be looking for that bar to be a maybe a little bit deeper into this candle. That's probably the preference. But this is giving me the indication that this is a false break of this area. And I think there may well be some upside here. If you put a range in here, let me do that. You probably want it to start around about, I don't know, this area here. And it's probably looking around about that level there as well. In there somewhere. So we've rejected the break of that with that crazy bar last week, 2 weeks ago, sorry, a week and a half ago. And again, we've come back in and we've rejected the higher level, but we've also retested this trend line that's been broken. Maybe I'm looking for a higher low here, but I'm okay with what I see. And what I see is that line has been broken and retested, and it's a double cross of the daily pivot as well. So it's not the worst scenario. So in 5 minutes time or 4.5 minutes time, I don't need to trade the Aussie long because I'm already in an Aussie long. But this may be an opportunity to, if you are of the opinion the Aussie can go long, to get in on that. So Aussie Kiwi, I'll have a look at that when it does close. If I feel that I want to put more risk on the table, and I'm not inclined to do that today, I may look at Aussie Kiwi long on the 30-minute chart. But that's about it, mate. I don't have anything else really. Not liking the look of that bar, but that's a 30-minute bar. I'm trading this on the daily chart. I'll hang on to that position on the Aussie and see how we go. But that's about it.
Okay.
I've got nothing. Right, how about you?
No. I mean, it's same deal really. The FTSE looks a little bit too choppy and pretty quiet too. I've just looked at the heat map and we're around about 50-50. So I'm not interested in this market at all at this current time. So I think let's talk again in half an hour and see if things have changed. But at this current time, I think it's just time to just let the market do its thing and show itself again at some point. Haven't missed anything.
Well, let's hope it does. And tomorrow we can come back and be full of ideas and full of confidence that the market's going to give us what we're asking.
Yeah, happy hump day for us.
That's it. Happy hump day.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Catch you in half an hour. Those of you who have joined us today on a day that's really a little bit boring, to be fair, unless you're gung-ho and want to enter into trades that are, should I say, risky at best, then well done. Nice to have you on board, and we look forward to your company tomorrow when we'll do it all again, and hopefully we've got a little bit more clarity around where the market's headed and we can trade a little bit more. See you in half hour, Ash, and everyone else will see you tomorrow if you're not in the TTR, pardon me, evening session. See you later.
Great
Bye.
stuff. Till then.